Hi there, my name is Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. After playing for years under different bands, Christy Costello is now writing and releasing music under her own name. A staple of the Twin Cities music scene, From the Dark, Costello's new solo record is a compilation of fresh material and some older songs from previous bands that she felt needed a new life. This record's got a little bit of everything for you. That post-punk, some new wave, some 60s girl group with a little bit of country western thrown in at the end. So join me for a chat with Christy Costello, and that's right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Christy, how's it going?
Going great, Joe.
I'm glad
Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm glad we could have you on the show. So, first off, this is a question I ask every person who has been interviewed, which is, what is the log line for the music you make? Kind of what's that when someone goes, "Oh, cool, you make music," and they go, "What kind of music do you make?" What's your one sentence answer to either to explain it to them?
Wow, that's a good question because mine changes so much.
Mm-hmm.
I do cover a lot of gamuts in my music.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's a bit punk, it's a bit post-punk, it's a bit new wave, slight pitches of goth and grunge,
Mm-hmm.
and a dose of Americana here and there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's like you just kind of see how cool they are when you start describing it, and then if they get it, they get it, and if not, you just kind of move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, the record I just put out, because I have a sax player now. And I've been in many other bands, but this solo record coming out, I got this comparison twice now. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Somebody said that we sounded like Rocket from the Crypt mixed with Babes in Toyland and B-52s, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
But I would throw a little Susie Sue in there too. But if we're gonna, it crosses quite a bit of ground there.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do I know you've played in a number of bands and you've been making music for a bit. Let's talk a little bit about kind of your history with music. What made you want to get involved? What made you want to start making music, and kind of when did you start making music for yourself?
Okay. I started writing music for myself in 1993. I started my very first projects then, and played my very first shows, and I was 17. So that was 30 years ago. And I think my very first show I ever played was on the Turf Club stage on a Tuesday night when they didn't have rock and roll then. They were a country bar. And St. Paul Music Club, run by Rob Rule, began hosting some more punk rock and roll shows on Tuesday nights. And they called themselves the St. Paul Music Club. So that was one of my very first shows. Second or third were a little club next to First Avenue called Blues Alley. Don't think it exists anymore. It's right across the street from First Avenue, that little corner where the Irish bar is.
Yeah.
And then I played at Fernando's, which doesn't exist anymore, which was a dive bar on Bloomington and Lake Street. My 18th birthday, I played at this punk rock basement show place on Bloomington and Lake Street called the Bomb Shelter.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are when I started, and then none of those bands really stuck, so I'm not even going to name them.
Yeah.
But the first band that stuck and stayed together for over 13 years was my band Ouija Radio.
Okay.
And we put out our first record. I believe it came out in 1998. The demo tape came out the year before, but we did our first record release thing in the 7th Street entry. It would be in 1998. Then that band would be together for quite a while. And then I would join this Detroit garage rock band called the Von Bondies.
Okay.
And that was right after recording my 5th record with Ouija Radio, which got shelved because I got asked to be in the Von Bondies. And I would be gone for a few years at that point. So I took the opportunity to jump into that band. And then upon coming home, I started the band Pink Mink with some friends. And did maybe one or two more Ouija Radio shows. And then that was about it for Ouija Radio. Pink Mink would go on until around 2015.
Okay.
We played our very last show at the 2015 Pizza Luce Block Party. So it was almost 5 years for Pink Mink too. And then in the meanwhile, I started a band with members of Gay Witch Abortion and Dillinger 4 called Butchers Union.
Oh, yeah.
And Butchers Union hasn't got an online presence except for whatever YouTube videos that exist there. But we played a handful of shows for around 6-7 years. So, but we didn't become that band where you could find us. You just had to show up. And then I joined Monica LaPlante on bass in her band in 2018 or 19. It might be 19. It was about right before the pandemic started. And I'm still in Monica LaPlante. And in that period of time, I ended up just jumping in and dancing and singing in the Extraterrestrials.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so I'm still in that band. But it's basically Extraterrestrials and Monica LaPlante were all the same band with a different spice of characters and extra players here and there. But the core band, the drums, the bass, and the guitar, all are the same people. So now they're in my band. And I've done lots of different weird projects with other people too. Just sang on some records, sang on some 2 Birthday Suits records. And I sang the backup vocals on the Off With Their Heads record that came out right before the pandemic as well. So I'm doing stuff for sure.
Yeah, you're kind of really ingrained in kind of the pieces of local music that I think was an early inspiration for why Ear Coffee existed. Was, I know when Wes and I were together, we're like, oh, Monica LaPlante's cool, and we heard about, like, I didn't go to shows. I kind of vaguely heard about Butchers Union and like some of that other stuff. So that's really cool to hear that you had hands in all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah.
So it gets. I keep thinking someday I'm going to put the music down, but it finds me, or it keeps. I can't.
Yeah.
At this point, there are people that did that are my age at this point that were in great bands that just don't do it anymore. But I think I'm a lifer at this point.
What about about music, especially playing, because it seems like you've played a lot of just mostly local, or at least in projects locally, that makes you want to stick around? What makes you not want to put it down? And
well, I guess I've booked 8 different venues in this town and done a lot of different like parties. I mean, I started like everybody else in the house shows, and I was younger, and then started promoting those, and then moved into my first shows I promoted were at the Turf Club in the early years in the 90s. Then eventually I just started booking venues, and have been doing that, and I do that currently. So I'm still very much part of the pulse. I mean, I'd say what the era of Butchers Union, post Pink Mink, I wasn't super active. We didn't play a ton of shows in Butchers Union, but I also decided to have a kid, and she needed those early years of development. She needed mom there a little bit more, but I still made it out. I was still helping out with people. I didn't book clubs in that period of time. I decided to start teaching yoga. While the child was, in her toddler stage. She's a tween now, so I'm back in the action a little bit more. Awesome. In about 5 years, she'll probably be the one hosting the house shows. So
yeah.
That as the stories go.
Yeah. So you had never made music like under your own name at that point then, or is In the Dark kind of your first official Christy Costello record?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Ouija Radio was basically me. I wrote all the songs, and I was the core member, founding member, and the members changed hands a lot through the years. So the first 5 years there was the drummer of Gay Witch Abortion, Sean Walker, was in those early years of Ouija Radio, and then Charles Gare would take over. He's the drummer of the band Spit Takes, who are now playing. They're pretty new, but they're out and about playing some shows. But I had 13 different members in Ouija Radio, but I was the core. I founded it and wrote all the songs. So in a weird way, that was kind of my project. But coming out under my own name, finally, I just felt this is the time. I can go back and play all the songs I've written in other bands, but not until I actually come out with a new batch. And, I could sprinkle a song from the past here and there, but I think it's best to start on a fresh foot when you're going to come out independently. But now I can like keep my own songs,
Mm-hmm.
and if I have to rotate the band around because people get busy, then I don't feel bad about a band breaking up, playing song,
Yeah.
the attachment. Well, so I don't know. It's never too late.
Yeah, no, totally. So when you started writing From the Dark, where were you? Were these songs you had kicking around then for a minute, or was it just like, all right, I want to put out, like you said, something under my own name finally?
Well, there was a couple songs that were from the past. The bulk of it was written in the last couple of years. But the From the Dark itself was a Ouija Radio song that never came out. And it was on the very last record that when I joined the Von Bondies that got shelved. We just never released it and worked it because I had that opportunity, and that took a while.
Mm-hmm.
It took some time. And it just felt like that was over with by the time I got done with that stint in the Von Bondies.
Mm-hmm.
But the songs weren't. And that was the second Ouija Radio record too that got shelved. There's about 20 some songs by Ouija Radio that nobody's seen or heard. And From the Dark was in that batch, but it fit the batch I was writing really, really well, and the tone of the record. So it's one of my favorite songs to play live. It's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it means so much too. Like this record there's a lot of duplicity in it. And, the contrasts, the contrasting subject matter in it. So From the Dark actually ends up the chorus, comes the light.
Yeah.
We go to really dark places sometimes, and we feel stuck, but if we find our way out, there's always something that's just pretty joyous that happens. Or I don't know. I believe in feng shui. You clean a sock drawer, and all of a sudden you'll get a phone call with an opportunity. Just organizing your life a little bit and like getting out of those funky funks and those weird energy voids that we get caught in. But yeah, so From the Dark came from that. And then there was a Pink Mink song that opens the record. But that Pink Mink song also traveled into the Butchers Union because it was not a release either. So the first song on the record is called Campbell's Soup Kids.
Yeah.
And that came from that era of Pink Mink. And it was just kind of perfect. It was like, this song it finally needs to find its way to a recording too. So it opens the record.
Yeah.
The rest of them, besides the covers, they're all pretty fresh.
Gotcha. Which ones were covers? I can't say I'm crazy. They're
obscure covers.
Okay.
Well, not really. The Smoking Pope song is the fourth song on the record.
Okay.
I Need You Around. It's just pop infectious. If you've ever listened to the Smoking Popes version, it reminds me of like sort of like a Ramones mixed with the Smiths.
Yeah.
And it's really fun and beautiful. And it also was in the Clueless movie back in the day in like 1994. So it was like kind of a hit back then. But my whole brain lately is I grew up loving girl groups from the 60s. Yeah. And I kind of do still want to make a full record of like where I take like punk songs and country songs and doo-wop them. Just make a whole covers like that. But that song was kind of like my like, oh, this is really fun. Putting the shoe-wops and the doo-wops in it and slowing it down a bit and girl grouping it. And there was a little bit of like a Shangri-La spoken word in there.
Yeah.
But that came out on a whim. I was just joking. Like I did that in one like take and we laughed because I didn't think it was gonna. I was just joking in the studio and all of a sudden I was like, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah. Well, I love the range on the record because you have everything from those like 60s girl groups that influenced you to kind of the buzzier 70s, punk kind of stuff to it's just you have a little bit of everything and I just appreciate it. It was like a great first kind of month of the year release to just felt really refreshing despite how dystopian it is at times.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I get that for sure. I can see that. And I keep getting that from people that they feel like it's got this like late 70s tinge to it, which I'm stoked about because I love that stuff. Actually, I was like, I felt like the song Pulse, which is actually a Psychedelics Furs cover. That's the other cover. It felt the way I arranged it felt super X-ray specs or something, the horns and like the the way the vocal line and melodies go. And yeah, and plus I think I put about like 100 more BPMs on it than but yeah, just those feels, and then the feel of post-punk a little bit. I can see where people get the 70s from it.
Yeah.
My favorite music comes from that period of time anyway, so I'm super highly influenced by it.
Yeah, it's like kind of gives like the vibe of like a Mudhoney, kind of early Mudhoney releases where they were, influenced by those like kind of garage rock revival bands.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, From the Dark and kind of the place you were writing from. I know you kind of touched earlier. It was, it starts out dark and it leads you into the light. I know Campbell Soup Kids, kind of that we're going back and you're looking at kind of moving into Uranium Baby with, the kind of the very nuclear
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, yeah. So I needed the Campbell Soup song I wrote around the time that everybody was getting smartphones. Not everybody had one yet. And then within about a year, we were starting to see some of the things that were cool about having all that technology and that interface right at our fingertips, and some of the stuff that was absolute BS. The way we communicate as humans is sort of being dumbed down. Is basically the idea. I also grew up without a cell phone in my life. I grew up with landlines. The first people that had a phone that were cordless, had a big giant antenna on them, without a cord. And I just remember the world's flipping. We didn't even have the internet when I was growing up in the 80s. So watching the internet come to life in the 90s. And then by then I was in college. So I was taking all those interpersonal and interpersonal communication classes where they were already talking about how we as a society are losing how we communicate personally with each other.
Yeah.
We're losing the mom and pop stores. We're losing everything to drive through pharmacies, drive through food. You no longer see your community because you're not going and waiting in line to pick up your prescriptions. You're not, it's food, everything. That used to be a thing. You used to go to that one place and it was a hub and you would see your neighbors and you would see people. And it just got less and less, and now I just put that together with, now we're at cell phones and we're communicating with even less verbiage, with less words. We're communicating with memes and just completely, our language is just like, fully.
Yeah.
And so the whole song was kind of like, I grew up, there's just stuff that reminds me of certain things of the 80s, Campbell Soup Kids. We all had that. And I think that's still a pretty big thing, but not maybe as big as it was in the 80s. But everything about the 80s, even then we were like, everybody was like, kill your TV. The TV is poison. Oh, because there was like TV had expanded in the 80s. We didn't have all that cable access in the late 70s. And then we started having like all these channels and more channels. And then everybody was complaining about how their kids wouldn't get away from the TV. They were sitting right in front of the TV. And I think it's funny because we're paralleling that with their devices.
Yeah.
Now. It's the same sort of thing. So the song was kind of about all that, opening it up and smartphones. And that's funny because I did write the song, 2012, 13, maybe. So the cell phone this 2012 was when I wrote it, but like we had a couple of years now of having smartphones. They think they came around in 2009.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. I was a kid at that point still. So
yeah. I was too.
And so
and I still am.
Exactly. And so you were kind of, as you were like the record progresses, you were kind of looking at trying to find that kind of that more positivity, that light then as you were going on.
Balancing it all out. Like we're still living in this world no matter what, how fucked up it is. So song 2, I've had identity theft now through the internet. Just my kid plays Among Us, one of those, who's the imposter on the spaceship, but it's like with 4 other people live or 5 or whatever. And somebody is the suspect. So sus came from I would listen to the kids just be like, that's sus. And I'm like, I know a couple things that are sus too. So, just, I gotta like just pay attention a little bit more to what's like truth and what's fake and real. And Like we have all these people that go online and decide they're the judges, and they can just put a scarlet letter on somebody and just rip them apart instantly. I mean, I don't feel that's the 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 safest place either. Even if we're trying to do justice, I don't know if it's safe still to take matters into, I don't know, a place where people can just light a fire and not see things clearly or know the facts or the truths. So, I mean, this is all just a study, of what's been going on. Song 3, we destroy ourselves, like somebody pressed the damn button. We've already done that with Hiroshima and all that. And we know the effects of it, but it's like, it's out there. It's still a threat that everybody's pointing at the nuclear rockets at everybody else. Just need that one like crazy fucker to press the button, and we won't know the world the same ever, and how do we evolve from that? And that one is kind of fun. It's almost like I took the idea and traumafied it. The trauma movies, like Toxic Avengers, all the B movies that are just like super gory and almost borderline soft porn, but still have like a plot.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of nuclear waste in these movies, and what happens people after it. I just kind of went there into like sci-fi, like futuristic. What if?
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's campy.
Yeah.
So still, even with all these like real life subjects, I'm taking them into this. So, well, what we fucking gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Still having fun. Still make it fun at the same time. So there's the duplicity too.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty heavy subject matter, but yet we're still fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you get Need You Around, which is just a little brightness in there and a little cover, and then it goes back into some darkness for a minute. Juju Dolly. Yeah, Juju Dolly is just really, I don't know, kind of dark, witchy song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that stuff too. I come from a place of loving music like that, so I had to put one of those on there. And then Great Divide was written right around the time we were going through the last election. And I mean, I was shocked to find out how many people didn't. We live in the city, so we have a lot of mostly liberal minded people, but there's like, again, political divides.
Yeah.
You're seeing like people you love and known for years, and you're like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
And there's so many people like, unfriend me, don't talk to me if you think this way, blah. And it's just like, well, what about those people that are your family and you grew up with them? Are you going to, disown them in your personal life because they don't see eye to eye with you? Or are you going to try to find a way to talk about this?
Yeah.
It's where we're at.
You can't get around it. It's like you're like, I didn't realize my uncle thought that way, but we got to figure out how to have that chat, or at least put up with it.
Or at least, like know that, your political views are different, but in the end, you still fucking love each other, right? I mean, we're supposed to be in a country that we can have different political views. I just feel like right now we're getting to that place where it's like people are getting so damn heated about it. It's scary. So I feel like we're all losing the nuance of who we are. Yeah. And again, nuance is one of the things that's missed often in the communication online.
Exactly.
You're not looking at somebody's face and seeing the empathy in their eyes. You're just reading the words and ready to fight and bark, and it doesn't help. It's just not the way we should be communicating about such heated subjects.
Yeah. And the platforms we communicate on are not designed to have, any sort of lengthy discussion. It's how can I have the most succinct, like 2 sentences that makes everything the point you try to make, you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the way we're going right now, we're going to be kind of fucked from it. I laugh about this. I've said this in a couple different interviews this week, but I watched a few of those alien abductee documentaries of people who claim they, like multiple people from around the world, and every one of them says they communicate in this like tone. It's not our language, of course. They're talking about these abductees, but whether you believe this or not, but each one of them had the same message that like the aliens are telling us that our technology is going to fucking destroy us.
Interesting. I haven't watched one of those in a while. So
this once in a while, but like the same message is being, the abductees all say the same message when they, from apparently whatever they're hearing. And they're like, it was so crazy because I couldn't understand it, but I could, and each one of them ends up saying that like, you guys are fucking yourselves up.
Yeah.
And they probably, I mean, if they're able to fly through like the speed of light and stuff and get here, they probably do know a little bit more than we do.
They probably progressed a bit more in their society and beliefs. Yeah, totally.
They're getting a signal from like us.
Yeah.
And it's a signal of distress.
Yeah.
That's what my other band is about too, Extraterrestrials. It's like our last whole album with Terrestrial is about being aliens looking at it to the inside at Earth from the outside.
I Can't Stand Up is the closer, and it's such a departure. That's where suddenly the country western shows up in the release. And so talk to me about kind of where that song comes from and kind of why you included it, because it feels like such a palate cleanser almost once you get to it after, listening to the first 11 songs or 10 songs.
Yeah. Well, that also Can't Stand Up I forgot to mention this project. Did a project with Mike Blaha of the band's Blaha, and he was also one of the founding members and half of Blind Shake, or 2/3 of the Blind Shake band. And he asked me to do a number of songs with him that was more country based. And so I think we recorded around between 16 and 20 tracks. And we never really released those either. But he told me he ended up moving to Key West for a while and then moving away. And before he went, he's like, I don't know, you love these songs, do something with them. And when I was putting this record together, Can't Stand Up just stood out to me. The version we did was very just me and him, and it was acoustic guitar, and I'm on vocals. So I went and took it into the studio, arranged it so it had a like pedal steel and, like I said, girl group kind of vocals at the end, and a whole bunch of action on it now. But it's still simple. It just builds. Yet it fit the record because the song, it's so about having such a drastic change in your life that you made the decision to do something that is totally drastic. Just feel exhausted from the decision itself, and then you lay that part of yourself to rest. You know what I mean? It's good. This part of me, this character, part of my life, I think I'm going to move on to the next chapter. Still there. It's still part of who you are, except it's no longer the prominent person you are. And so I feel like a tree has like the leaf, in the lyrics, like it perennially comes back once in a while. You host this part of you, you have the fruit, and then you let it go, and then it falls to the earth, dissipates into the ground, becomes part of the cycle. The Ouroboros, the snake, eats its tail, and the infinite cycle of energy. And it just feels like it's a good way to end the song and that chapter, and the record. And I feel like it has its sentiment, like it's okay to just change and make those big decisions.
As a record, do you feel like From the Dark is like you putting away a chapter of life for yourself, given like some of these songs come from other projects that were never used, or is that just more specific to the song?
It is both, I guess.
Okay.
I was complaining to people for a long time how I needed to start writing my songs, and I'm a songwriter. I've written so many songs, and I was playing with so many bands, just backing other people up, but getting that itch to play my own music was really starting to grow on me, especially as I would play with all these players who are playing. I'm like playing they're all great songwriters in their own right. fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I felt like I was disappearing a little bit because I haven't put out a record since 2011 with Pink Mink.
Hmm.
And it's a long time, and in the grand scheme of things, this industry, I don't, didn't play the game that much, but like it goes fast.
Yeah.
Like you're today, gone tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I just needed to get something out. And some of it came from the past. So yes, I was trying to lay some things in my head to rest on that. And also, I don't mind taking a leap into another genre here and there. And it's all over the record. I've told people I'm going to someday make a country record, but I'm not going to come out and do that right now because I still have like this punk girl in me who wants to play super fast. It's kind of funny because I look at a lot of people my age and I'm like, they were punk and now they're all going Americana and country. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it.
No,
I'm not going to come out solo and just be like right there. I'm going to play fast for a little while and have a lot of energy, and we'll see. I also want to do an electronic record, and I want to do a weird like noise, but not noise, but jazz loungy, kind of combustible Edison meets Esquivel meets some weird Moog stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you just, it's really about like the instrumentation and collaborations. I'm way into collaborations right now. I mean, that's the other part of going solo, is that now I want to bring all kinds of people into the records I do in the future. And the talk is on the table for a lot of people. They know who they are. I've already like summoned them. I'm like, you're next. But that's the fun thing about doing a solo project is you can bring so many people into play with you. Even this record has some cameos.
You were talking a little bit before about kind of that getting the itch to go solo. Was there like a specific moment where you're like, fuck it, I want to make an album for myself again? Or was it just kind of or I think it's time? Or was it just it all kind of aligned for you?
I mean, I've been feeling it before even the pandemic started. As I was playing, I kept getting into more projects with other people, which I love. I'm definitely there. Like, have you ever read or heard of the book, The Artist's Way?
I have not, but I'll have to write that. I'll have to note that.
Well, The Artist's Way is a really great book. And there's all kinds of different chapters in it about being an artist. And like, there's a chapter about where you step back and you hold the other artists up, and you do that, and your own personal art goes underneath it, but you hoist the others up. And, how that can feel when you are also a creator or you have a creative mind. And my creative mind was starting to really like be fired up because all these people around me are creating great stuff, but I'm also like, I can do that too. And I think because of the Von Bondies and then into Butchers Union, and then going into Monica, I did some, Pink Mink was definitely, I did a lot of the creating in that, but I had done a good chunk of like, I feel like 9 to 10 years of being everybody else's player. And I needed it. I was like, I gotta get some stuff out. And then once the pandemic hit and Monica started sending me tracks over online to do for the current, we had to play a radio show, but we had to pre-record everything because it was pandemic. I had, out of necessity, I had to learn how to use the recording software, which was the gateway. Like after that, it was like, oh boy, I was recording all over the place. And then I was pulling up old demos and I was like re-recording them into Logic. And then I realized I was putting easy drummers on them. And then I was making full songs. Yeah. And then I started a Bandcamp and started putting my demos on it. And they were actually be well received, which the music from a lot of the demos I put out, people bought it, went to fund actually getting in the studio with these guys, making the record come to life. So that's basically where it all started happening. Sky's the limit once I learned how to figure out the software. And I'm glad that the pandemic happened. If the pandemic hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't be putting this record out right now. Interesting. Because I would be working multiple jobs, bartending, teaching yoga. I was running like my head, like playing in every other band. I had no time. But the pandemic gave me the time to learn this and hash out some music.
Yeah, no, totally.
now I know. And so that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, people have been demoing on 4-tracks forever. And
Mm-hmm.
I was always that person that went into the practice space and sussed out like riffs with somebody until, like went back home, used a cassette tape recorder and like listen to it over and over again. And,
Mm-hmm.
now, or my phone now, but
Yeah.
like years I just studied that way and wrote that way.
Mm-hmm.
But now I can actually write everything, and that's kind of fun because I'm like, wow, I'm a bass player, I'm the drummer, I'm like, and everything on the most. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Code Cyan music video you just put out as of recording this. It was you shot it at the Lit Pinball Bar, and it's kind of it really feels the vibe of the record, that kind of that glitzy, a little bit of edge to it. Talk to me about making that video, kind of where the idea came from and who you worked with.
Yeah, so the video was directed and edited and shot by Arika Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
Arika is a really great photographer. She's had many art openings. She's also Orion Trion's sister, my guitar player.
Okay.
And she's made Monica LaPlante's Compression video and the Extraterrestrials Arm in a Sling video. So she's moving into videos more.
Mm.
She's doing a really great job. And I wanted to do this as my first video because it was a departure from the singles I released, which were Uranium Baby,
Mm-hmm.
Juju Dolly, and Sus. And those are pretty punk rock, grindy.
Yeah.
But this song it's a really upbeat new wave song. And I felt like putting the record out, putting out Code Cyan as the first video is just fun, upbeat, and light. It's a song also for my kid. I wrote it for her.
Mm.
As we all have these weird struggles with social anxiety and fitting in and depression, we had this it's like a letter to her. We have a little code. It get kind of rough. We know how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And I just, it's like, stop beating yourself up. Do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Be yourself. Be who you love, who you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good message. It's the rad informer, as I like to call her. I'm like, that person, you need that little rad informer in your life to remind you when things are really sad or down, that you're down, that there's somebody there to pick you up.
Yeah.
And so the video it was really familial to me.
Mm.
I had a lot of friends show up and just rock out with me, and my own daughter be in it. And just make it super fun and bright and glammy. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Come out the door with that one. Because I just think that, especially now too, it's the winter. It's coming out in the winter, even though we haven't had a harsh winter.
Yeah.
But also we're going into an election year, and I just felt like I want to step out on a positive light on this one. And it just screams fun. I mean, it's high action. It's shot at the pinball. Pinball is fun.
Yeah.
Singing, rocking out with your friends is fun.
Yeah.
Dressing up, it's fun. There's a lot of like I've seen in there where my friend turns from a boy to a girl. It's just, like I said, I just want people to just be themselves as much as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a few questions left here, Christy. So first, we always like to have a little section, which is, local shout outs. What local bands do you think people should be listening to? What local bands do you love? Could be local, could be regional, whether you're friends or they're just bands you're loving. Like, who are kind of you listening to and would love people to also know about?
Okay. Locally, obviously, everybody I'm playing with at my record release show, Citric Dummies and Scrunchies. Obviously, the bands I'm in, Monica LaPlante, Extraterrestrials. I love the band Mullet right now. I think they're really fun. There's definitely an energy going with that, and it just sounds really good. Let's see. Let's hear. I'm going to keep going. Just give me a second. Gay Witch Abortion, they've always been one of my favorites, and they've revamped their sound by adding Nate Nelson from, what am I thinking? Nate Nelson was in the Stunning, but I play with them all the time. American Cream.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, he's on keyboards now in Gay Witch Abortion, and I find that really, really cool. I recently saw an Alan Sparhawk show with this old friend from Duluth, Pete Biasi. I'm trying to Fistful of Lanterns, I think is what they were called. It was heavy as shit. And it was really, really cool. And I was like, that's like the opposite of most Alan Sparhawk stuff. He was like doing like metal and screamy metal.
Mm-hmm.
So
that rocks.
I was like, that's really fun and cool. What else? There's just so many.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm forgetting a million bands that I love just talking right now.
It's never
Vita Velveeta. Like I think that's really cool stuff going on right there.
Mm-hmm.
All the punk bands I like are like Visual Learner, the Neo Neos, Bermuda Squares. Love that whole scene that's going on. Bulio Omega, hardcore. In the rap world, I've recently been doing stuff with Carnage, but he's got a really cool political project called Anti-Foe. This guy's like some members from Omaha come up, and all the like backbeats and all the samples are pretty soul based, and I love that.
That's
but
awesome.
They're kind of anti-Trump, and they let you know it. So it's Anti-Foe, but it's also just it's dope as hell. It's groove, and I love that stuff. So I could probably go on.
Yeah, it's like
here.
we could always be here all night just naming cool bands from the area.
Could stop those guys.
Yeah.
I'm River Sinclair. I mean, we could just keep going. Yeah. Oyster World.
Yeah. And then finally here, where can people connect with you to know what's going on? I know you have a release show on the 17th. I don't know if this will be out in time for that, but kind of where can people keep up to date with everything going on with Christy Costello?
I have a website that's ChristyCostellomusic.com. That's pretty much usually updated every couple of weeks if we add shows. I think I play in Coma Club. When you see Coma Club, that's all three of the bands I'm in mixed together for a set. So you'll get an ET set, you'll get a Monica set, you'll get a Christy set. It's just when we're like, really, everybody's like, oh.
Yeah.
And so Monica's got a bunch of shows coming up too, which we'll start playing. I think the next one is there's a Monica show at Zora Darling with Unstable Shapes. Mullet, it's on that one too. And then a Christy show I'm playing in April, last Thursday of April, I think. I don't know what date, 24th.
Yeah.
With some friends from San Pedro scene, the Toys That Kill scene, with bands called Conchol.
Okay.
And then a band called Hachi from Seattle and Slow Death. So that'll be at Cloudland. So that'll be and then I'm playing Art of Whirl.
Nice.
So those shows will be all starting to, you can go to my website and there's a show listing there. Bandcamp, I don't know if they do that, but I think Spotify and Bandcamp will let you know if but Bandcamp's a good place to buy the record.
Yeah.
So if you want to order the record, and that's a good spot. Plus there's going to be new merch up there. That's going to be really cool.
Nice.
I'm excited about the new merch. So yeah.
Well, Christy, I appreciate it. Congrats on From the Dark. It's a fantastic record. It's one I've been playing on repeat when I can listen to some music. Go to Bandcamp, buy the record if you haven't yet. If you haven't listened to it, stream it, listen to it, buy it, do it. Christy, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me.
Thanks so much, Joe, for the invite. This was fun.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.